I didn't even
Sorry.
I didn't even know this was a thing until Alan was like, you would be good for this panel. Come take it. Like, was this like a thing that you all were made aware of in high school or how did you all get into it? Well, I guess you guys will say that in a second, so but
Well, I started it, so I started the project, but I don't know for everyone else like how they got involved.
I found it
right.
online.
I joined because I met you, Amy, and then also because someone who I was friends with in high school, Anne, was like one of the recruiters for Do Re Mi, and she was like bugging me. She's like, "Join, join, join." I was like, "Oh, okay, I guess I will. I guess I'll join." So
Should we start letting people in?
Yeah, I'm gonna start letting everyone in.
Thank you all for joining. We're just going to give it a few more minutes for people to trickle in. Okay, I think we're going to get started. Hello, everyone. My name is Lucia Noto, and I'm the Vice President of Events for the Do Re Mi Project. And I'm so excited to welcome you to our Do Re Mi Alumni College panel. Today, you're going to hear from Do Re Mi alumni who are now studying music as majors, minors, and everything in between. And they're super excited to share with you how to showcase your musical experience in your college apps, whether that's through auditions, art supplements, or just highlighting your love for performance. And we'll also have a Q&A session at the end, so you'll have the chance to ask your own questions and get personalized advice. So feel free to put those questions in the chat or save them for the end if you want to ask them out loud. So let's get started. So to kick things off, could each of you guys introduce yourselves, including your name, how you were involved with Do Re Mi, where you currently go to school, and what you're majoring in?
Yeah, I can go first because I'm first on the screen. But hi everyone, thank you guys so much for coming. My name is Amy, and I'm currently a senior at Harvard studying government and East Asian studies. And I'm also a student at New England Conservatory studying food performance. I'm doing like the 5-year master's program between the two schools. And I started Do Re Mi in high school during my sophomore year, so it's been almost 6 years now.
can go next since I'm next on the slide. Hi everyone, my name's Chloe. I'm currently a senior at the University of Michigan. I'm dual degree in bassoon performance and music education, and I actually was not a part of Do Re Mi, but I am very good friends with Alan, who was a part of the program, and with everything that I know about it, it seems like an excellent program, and I'm glad to be here.
Hi, I'm Auden. I'm currently a freshman at Rice University Shepherd School of Music, and I'm studying cello performance. I was a tutor at Do Re Mi for a few years. Yeah.
Hi everyone, my name is Alan. I'm a senior studying clarinet performance and pure mathematics at the University of Michigan. I also have a computer science minor, and I got involved in Do. I was the vice president of social media for a little bit, and I was a tutor, I guess, during that time as well.
Thank you guys. So we are going to start with, there we go, high school life. Um, can you, sorry, how did you decide what major to apply to? And if you switched, how did you make that switch to decide on the current major that you're in?
I can go first on this one, and I must say beforehand, this is very abnormal. So if you cannot relate to me on this, almost no one can. I was a very weird situation, but I knew starting in like elementary school that I was going to be going into music and education. I was very fortunate to have a lot of great experiences. I mean, starting even at just like that young age, and it kind of just stuck with me. And from very early on, I was like, I can't not do this. This has to be what I end up like focusing my time into. I understand that's very abnormal. So, please understand that like if you don't know exactly what you're going into, that is perfectly normal.
Yeah, I can go next. I think around my like freshman or sophomore year of high school, I was like really trying to figure it out. I knew that I wanted to do music, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to just do music or I wanted to do a double major. But what I think it came down for me is that I was worried that if I didn't like put everything into music that I would have regrets later. So I think that was the right decision for me, but yeah.
I can go next. So I applied not as government, which I am now, but as economics. And I kind of thought that I wanted to do arts administration after college. My dream job was literally being like the CEO of a huge orchestra. I've since like switched my plans, but that's kind of why I wanted to do economics, which is like business, and also like doing the music thing at NEC.
I was always really good at clarinet in high school. I'm a clarinetist. And so I figured I would just like keep up with that. And I came to the to university as just a clarinet performance major. But then in my second semester of my freshman year, I took a the intro programming class here, and I really liked that. It gave me a huge ego boost because it was the intro class. And so I decided to take more computer science classes, and eventually it got like a lot harder, and it got kind of boring. And so that's why I only have that as a minor. And then because I was doing between like computer science and like music, it took time away from practicing. So I was getting less out of my practicing. So I felt worse as like a clarinetist. And I think as this was happening, I was starting to do better in math classes that I was taking. And I declared a full degree in math last semester, so earlier this year. And now I'm stuck with all three. And yeah, it's been kind of like a weird path, just bouncing back and forth between what I like and stuff. So yeah.
Thank you guys for sharing. I love the variety of majors we have here. That's exciting. The next question is about high school life. In addition to Do Re Mi, what extracurriculars did you do that you felt were most helpful for your college apps?
I can go first on this one and get, oh, sorry, I mean, did you want to go first? Oh, okay. All right. So I guess I wasn't necessarily in Do Re Mi, so I can't even really include that one. But I grew up in Northern Virginia, and there were just a lot of different musical opportunities there, both within my school system and outside of it. Of course, like within my school system, I was involved in as many like large ensembles as possible. Like my school had two like concert bands, so I was in both of them, and I also was a part of their marching band. Within that, just trying to like go through as much leadership opportunities as you possibly can, so you can really familiarize yourself not just with like the I am playing my instrument, but I'm understanding how the behind the scenes of the music world in this particular setting looks. I also was a part of a youth orchestra for all 4 years of high school. The American Youth Philharmonic program was the specific name of the orchestra. Honestly, like whatever youth orchestra program is near you will be absolutely fine. And then, as well as that, I joined a community band in my area. So Nova, that's the name of the local community college. Um, the woman who was running the band program there, she was a good friend of my choral teacher, and so um, she ended up putting me in touch. They needed a bassoonist, so just finding as many even like small opportunities like that, even if you think it's just like a silly gig, it'll give you more opportunities to like network yourself and get familiar with the music scene around you. And those are all things that you can like put on your college apps, and that they'll seem impressive because it's not just like, oh, I play music, but it's also I'm exemplifying leadership skills. I am involved in my community. I'm able to connect with people on all of these different levels. And those are all things that you can kind of twist into the way that you want in your college apps.
So I can go next. Doremi was my main extracurricular because, like I said, I started the project in high school, but in addition to that, I also did flute. So I did like competitions, concerto competitions. I played on From the Top. I was in NYO USA, and I think those are really helpful. But I think what was even more important about those experiences were the people that I was in touch with. In my application and in my interview, I talked about speaking with like the professional musicians I was working with and understanding like the issues they were having with their management, and that kind of formed like the storyline for like why I want to do economics and music. And I think, in my admissions file, my interviewer said like I sounded like I really thought a lot about my future by talking to the professionals I was in contact with. And so I think it's not just like about what you do in high school, but what you think about it, the amount of thought you put into it, and how you like look back at what you did in high school to inform like what you want to do as a career.
I can go next. I'd say the things that were most helpful to my applications were really doing the things that I loved with my instrument. I think I did a lot of chamber music, a lot of service, a lot of performing. I did youth orchestra, some festivals and stuff. But really, I think if you're exploring the reason why you love music and the reason why, I think that'll come through in your application. So, yeah, for me, that was definitely a lot of chamber music and making music with um, a lot of peers. But, yeah.
For me, I think in high school, I don't think I did a whole lot outside of music. And when I applied to college, it was just for music. So I think for me, it was mostly just like working on my excerpts, on my solos, just stuff for the audition. At least for UMich, I to get into the music school, you also have to have like good enough grades to get into like the main school. And so for that, like one of those application essays I wrote about how I was involved in like some gaming Discord server, but I highlighted that it was like very diverse or something like that. And I think they like that. So
That's really cool. I love how you were able to tie that back to your passions. Our next question is about the summer. Do you have any programs that you would recommend specifically for musicians?
This is this is very
Sorry, we keep
intense.
overlapping. You go
Hazarding.
first. You go first.
Sorry. This is very much just like a double read specific thing. If you're at all like involved with vocal majority, they have like an ADRID program, which is an advanced double read program. But even just their regular programs as well. They also host like double read days at different locations across the country. So that'll get you involved with some of the like professors and professional players within like the double read land. For all of the other instruments, I'm sorry, I don't have anything specific for y'all. And then on top of that, there were a couple of like marching band related institution camps that mostly just helped out with leadership skills. I know in Pennsylvania in Westchester, they had uh like a drum major academy there that of course is very tailored towards marching band. So if that's something you're interested in, I would definitely check it out. Um, but in general, it did also touch on just a lot of general like advocacy and leadership skills. So I would keep that in mind as well.
I was gonna say Doremi actually made an Instagram post about this. So I'm gonna copy the link to that Instagram post and put it in the chat. We compiled a list of like all the really great music programs. I personally did NYO USA. I'm in high school. I also did the National Symphony Orchestra at the Kennedy Center does like a summer music institute, but there's so many more programs that I personally can't speak to, but we talked to some people in this post that you can like look at. There's a lot of good resources in that post.
I think when like picking a summer program, it's very important like which goals you have in mind. So I think by what I mean by that is like I think some are very like practice based, whereas some I went like specifically to meet the teacher, so I'd keep that in mind. But this is mostly for strings. I thought I went to Center Stage Strings and the Meadowmount School of Music, and those were both very good for getting a lot of practice in and achieving those goals. I also went to Bowdoin International Music Festival, which was amazing. Yeah, I think if anyone has any specific questions about string festivals, there's a lot I could recommend based off of what your specific goals for the summer are. So definitely reach out if, yeah.
It's been a while since I've been in high school, so I've kind of forgotten a lot of the summer festivals, aside from like the main ones that everyone probably knows, like NYO USA, NYO2, like Interlochen, Blue Lake, Brevard, like Tanglewood. I remember one thing I did in high school was a lot of high school musicians nowadays have like Instagram accounts where they like post like practice clips and stuff. And a lot of people in their bios will put like what summer festivals they were in and like what year. So I remember like stalking people online and looking at what summer festivals people went to and look them up to see if it was something I'd like to apply to. So I guess that's one way you can search for stuff.
Switching gears to the reason why most of you are probably here, the college application process. How did you incorporate music into your college applications, whether that's through essays, supplements, or auditions?
I can go first. So because I applied for a dual degree program, obviously I had to audition for NEC, but what I think is really cool about a lot of schools, including Harvard, is that you can submit a music supplement that's in addition to your Common App, and that gives you space to not only upload videos of yourself playing your instrument, but also the opportunity to submit a music resume. So you might know the Common App only gives you space to list like 5 honors or something like that. But if you submit like a music resume, you can put like all the ensembles you're part of, all the performances you've had, all the competitions you've won on that resume. And then that resume, at least for Harvard, and those videos get sent to someone to review. I know at Harvard, like our orchestra director watches all the string players, but I'm not sure about like wind players or like piano or anything like that. But definitely people do look at that stuff, and that's kind of how I incorporated music into my application.
I will say, I applied to bassoon performance and music education at the University of Michigan. So, of course, I submitted my typical like Common App application. I also submitted a music resume, and on top of that, what you can also submit is a master work of every single piece you've ever played, just organized, I mean, alphabetically, but also by what type of ensemble it is. So any orchestral works you've played, any wind band arrangement works you've played, any solo works you've played, any chamber works you've played, and just kind of go based on that. Just that way, whoever you're sending this to has a general idea as to like, oh, how much experience does this person have playing standard rap, playing new music, all of those sorts of things. Um, of course, I had to submit pre-screenings for all of my applications. I was grateful to get to work with my private teacher. She had a friend who had a like underground, like in his house recording studio. So I was able to get nicer quality recordings of me playing a couple solo pieces and a couple excerpts. So we were able to send that in. And then um, the performance aspect of it, like we had it, I did an online audition just because that was like right around COVID times. So anything that was out of state, they were just very okay with doing Zoom auditions. And then for the music education portion of things, they actually just wanted me to do an interview. They didn't request to hear me play twice. And the performance audition that I had was in no way related to the education portion of my application.
I went through the entire audition process, so I applied to a mix of conservatories and universities, submitted pre screens, and then I did all of my auditions live. Um, yeah, and then I think in my supplementals, I wrote a fair bit about music, especially since a lot of them were tailored towards that. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I applied just for music. So like music was like my entire college application. I remember one of the supplemental essays for when I applied to UMich was like, why do you want to go to this school? I just talked about how I had a trial lesson with one of the professors and I really liked them. I felt very comfortable around them. I thought they gave great advice. And so I just and I liked how they played. So I just wanted to work with them and I got a copy like freshman or sophomore year. I requested a copy of what the people who review the college applications like what they say and what notes they take, and they were like, oh, they can tell that I um they like that I said that. So
That's great. Auden, I think, mentioned conservatory programs versus a music major at a university. Could someone talk about the differences between those two?
I can start. I was actually deciding between a conservatory and a university program um, when making a college decision. I think being at Rice at a university with its own music school, you're able to. I feel like I have a larger perspective on on just like the world in general because I'm interacting with music majors and also non-music majors, and also there's the opportunity at many universities to take academic classes as well. Um, that there might not be at a conservatory. But from talking to people, I think a conservatory can sometimes have a more musically focused environment. Like you're talking about music more, you're spending more time with your musical peers, like living together. Like here, I'm at the music school, but then I come back and I live with a bunch of academic majors and I interact with them a lot. But I think there's also a lot, yeah, it's just, I'd say it's very different to be mostly surrounded by just people that are in music than not. Yeah.
yeah, I agree. I think to my understanding, like a conservatory, it's you're surrounded by like only music people and you're pretty much locked in to like music for the most part. Whereas a university, at least in my experience, it's very easy to explore different interests. Um, and you're with a bunch of other people that aren't musicians as well. And I guess if you go with the university, you get more of a what most people would imagine is like a normal like college experience, I guess.
That's really
Yeah,
helpful. Thank you guys. Oh, go ahead, Chloe. Do you have something to
no,
say?
it's okay. I was just gonna say, I would just very much consider what your all's personal goals are as far as your career aspirations and what specifically you're looking to major in. Just like again, from a music education standpoint, most conservatories don't have music education programs. They don't typically have music therapy programs. They're very just like performance heavy. So if you know, like, I'm going to be auditioning for orchestras, performance is my like primary and only gig, this is everything I want to do, then absolutely go ahead and apply to a bunch of conservatories. But if you think that some of those like or even like arts admin, like if those are things that you're more interested in exploring, I would also be sure to check out as many universities as possible.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you guys. One more clarifying question. Could someone talk about the difference between a double major and a dual degree?
Yeah, so at least at the University of Michigan, I'm not sure if it's the same terminology at other places. Um there are multiple different schools. For example, the music school is the School of Music, Theater, and Dance. That's all one school that's part of the larger university. There's also the College of Engineering, like STAMPS, which is like the art school. And the main college is like LSA or Literature, Science, and Arts. But it's like these are all different schools. They have their own policies and stuff like that. So here, if you double major, then you're adding a second like major, but you're still in the same school. So I think if I did like computer science and mathematics, that would be a double major because it would stay in LSA. But I'm doing like music and I'm doing math. The math falls under LSA, which is a different school, and the music degree falls under SMTD, which is the music school. So I have to fulfill both requirements of these two separate degrees. Um, and there's like some logistics stuff that I'm not entirely sure of, but I think I got it figured out, hopefully. So
Definitely agree with everything Alan said. The program I'm in is a dual degree program, but because Harvard doesn't have like a music performance major, my two degrees are just between like two completely different schools.
Within SMTD, because Alan and I are going to the same school, with the music education and performance track, that is something that's labeled as a dual degree, at least in our school, just because of how many of the requirements overlap. But that is definitely going to be depending on which school you're going to. So I would just make sure to do your research and check your terminology as you go.
Thank you guys for sharing about that. Can you talk about what your audition experience was like, whether you did it in person or online or a little bit of both?
Yeah, I can go first. I did in-person auditions. I think I had I had a lot. I had like 8 auditions, which honestly was probably too many. I think I kind of went and traveled around, um, taking all of these auditions for about a month, um, like 1 or 2 a week, mostly on the weekends. I tried to group auditions together that were close to each other. Um, yeah, yeah.
I did a little bit of both. So, I did two in-person auditions for two different schools in Virginia. And then I had three online, like over Zoom auditions for a couple of out-of-state institutions, including UMich. For the in-person ones, especially since it was like my home state and I was a bit more familiar with the professors who were in the area, um, it was it felt a lot easier and calmer for me to like go in. I've seen these people before. I've worked with them. I can tell by seeing them in the face like they're actively rooting for my success. And it was absolutely nerve-wracking because I had never auditioned for a college music program before until then. Um, but it's nice. You get a feel for the college, you get a feel for the studio space. You just get a feel for the general vibe between you and the professor. Any questions you have, you can just ask them right then and there. And honestly, like I really enjoyed it. As far as the Zoom auditions go, those were a bit more difficult to navigate. I was not in a place where I was able to financially afford like traveling out of state for these different auditions, so I just ended up doing all of mine at home. Um, Even if you don't have proper like microphone technology, whatever it ends up being, you are still able to make those online auditions work. I remember I had purchased a microphone specifically for my audition for the University of Michigan, and it broke right before my Zoom call started. And so I ended up having to do my audition through my phone. Um, I don't know how I made it, um, but of course, like these professors, like they're not trying to hark you down, especially over some of these like technological problems that aren't necessarily within your control. I will say it does make it easier if you have those microphones, just because I know in my audition, the low register and the high register were just very difficult to hear across the computer, but ultimately they're trying to work with you. Um, and yeah, it's basically the like other than the technological aspects, it's the same conversation. You can still ask them questions, all those types of things.
I definitely agree with everything that's been said so far. I will say to add on to like Chloe's thing about deciding whether or not, if you have the capability to like afford to like travel to all your schools, I think definitely consider doing that. I just am saying that because like I've had some conversations with some professors who, if they have like a student auditioning from like the state next door, but is choosing to like do the audition online, they think it like reflects not so great on like their interest in the school. So like their demonstrated like willingness to like drive to like the other state to audition. So if you can like afford and you're able to audition in person at a school, I think that's generally recommended. The other piece of advice I'd give about audition experiences is making like a spreadsheet of all the requirements and then figuring out like how you can um how you can decide like what piece to use for each school so that you don't have to prepare as many like pieces or excerpts. Like try to have the pieces like overlap as many requirements as possible.
I think I in total applied to 6 schools. Two of them I had auditions in person for the final rounds, and the other four I did over Zoom. One of the ones I did in person was at a local college, so I wasn't too nervous about that one. I knew a lot of the professors there and the people I was auditioning for, and they knew me as well, so it was like really chill. But the only like out of state like in-person audition I had was at UMich, and I remember uh we drove there from Arkansas. I'm from Arkansas, by the way. And so it is like it we like bought a hotel, driving like 14 hours. My parents had to take off work. So it is like a considerable cost in time as well as like money. But it was interesting like seeing stuff, and it was very cool. Um, but for the other auditions, like over Zoom, it was really chill. I think I booked like a recital hall at a local college, and I did some of my auditions there with a setup. And then the other ones I did like in my room. I still think as long as you have a decent microphone, the professors can still can still like accurately or more or less accurately gauge your skill, versus if you did it in person. I think the biggest benefit of doing it in person is you get to see the campus and you get to see the school, like obviously. But I remember because I only visited for like a day or two, so I remember seeing some things, but I everything was like kind of fuzzy. So yeah.
Thank you guys for sharing. I know auditions can be a nerve-wracking process. Is it possible to take a private lesson with your professor at your respective college before applying? And if so, have you done that?
Yeah, I definitely recommend doing that if it's possible. I think like a hack, or not a hack, but like the advice I've gotten is like if you can show improvement based on the professor's comments between your trial lesson and like when you audition, that's really great because it shows that you're receptive to feedback. And you can also ask them a lot of questions about their school, and then you can talk about like those conversations in your essays and your interviews. So it's really helpful. Definitely recommend.
Yeah, I'd try and take lessons with as many of the professors that you're applying for as you can. I know for me, I reached out to most of the professors I was interested in studying with in August, and I tried to get Zoom lessons with all of them, and many of them responded, and we were able to schedule a lesson and get to know each other, and I was able to like figure out if I thought that that teacher was the right fit for me. Yeah. I know at Rice in particular, if you just email the teachers, the professors, you can try and get a response. If they don't respond at the first email, it's always okay to send a second. I did do that for a few people, and sometimes they'll get back to you. Um, yeah. And also, oh, if it's like within driving distance or it's in person, um, I attended like a few studio classes and stuff like that, so I'd always ask to see if you can step in because it can be so helpful to see how like the other people in that studio are playing, to see like what type of feedback they're giving each other, like what the vibe is. I thought that was so helpful. Even around your audition, can always ask. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's always a great idea for like the colleges you want to apply for that you're really interested in to reach out and see if you can get a trial lesson. It's a great way to show interest as well as seeing if you would work well with this professor, if you like how they teach, if you're comfortable around them, or if you're like scared of them the entire time. Um, and I think the only downside is that um, you'll have to pay most of the time, and it's like maybe like $100 or like $150 per lesson. So it does add up along with all the other like outrageous college application fees and like maybe other traveling stuff, which can be really annoying. Um, but yeah, I also think adding on to what Auden said is that if you are able to visit a school and if you time it right or get lucky with timing, you might be able to listen in on a studio class, but you might also be able to sit in on a rehearsal, like on a band or orchestra rehearsal. Maybe if they're very chill, you might even be able to play uh, in the band or the orchestra for a day. So ask about that if you for the schools you're interested in.
Can you talk a little bit about who reviews auditions at your specific schools during the application process, whether that's a professor, outside judges, a committee, or some sort of hybrid?
So as I said before, at Harvard, the music supplements, if you're a string player, it's reviewed by the director of the Harvard Radcliffe Orchestra. Don't know about like wind players. Don't know who watched my application because I'm a flutist. But I know for NEC, at least for the winds, the flutes, the audition is before a committee of like all the flutists. So not just like the teacher you're applying for, but all the different flute studios, and then they discuss it together.
For Rice, I know it's the cello faculty. In your audition, I walked in. It was just the three cello professors. Yeah, and then for the pre-screenings, I think it's also those faculty that will be there. Yeah.
I know for my audition, and also for my pre-screening, all of those were judged solely by the student professors at each of the schools that I was applying for. So I ended up just working with the same few people a couple times. The education department did also take a look at my audition and application, but they were not the people who accepted me into the performance program. They were in charge of accepting me into the music education program, which was technically a separate application.
I know if you're applying to a university, like a music school in a university, you also have to fill out like the common application or fill out the stuff that someone applying to the university in general would do as well. So in addition to being qualified enough to get into the music school, I believe I forgot what they're called, the people that like review your application at the main school also check your common app and your essays and stuff to see if your like test scores or all the stuff you've done is like good enough to be accepted into their university, given your music stuff.
That's really helpful. Thank you guys. Moving on to life after acceptance, which is sooner than you guys think. Can you talk about how music is incorporated into your daily life in college?
I mean, I guess a better question is like, how isn't it incorporated into my daily life? I mean, pretty much all of my classes, from my music education courses to my music theory courses, musicology, large ensembles lessons, like ultimately they are all focused around music of some variety. You're not always playing in every single one of those classes, but if you're not playing, you're discussing how music works, the background of whatever you're working on. So at least in your classes, for your music degrees, it does kind of follow you everywhere. Um, but even outside of that, I mean, like, of course, everyone has their own designated practice time. That is my time. I always like to wake up in the morning, I have my coffee, I get ready for the day, and before classes start, I go to the school and I practice. And that is part of my daily routine every day. And that is my personal ritual in order to keep music something that I'm able to stay interested in and still make it mine without it being something that is purely used for like classes, academic purposes, or just like as a job. I want to make sure that I'm still able to enjoy it and keep it mine. And then even outside of that, like at football games at the University of Michigan, you'll get to interact with the marching band there. They have campus bands and other ensembles that you can go like watch concerts for. So like I know I'll go like if I'm in symphony band, for example, I'll go watch the concert band playing concerts like a couple days before I end up having my own concert. So you get to like support your peers and also just listen to a bunch of new music that you may not have heard before at the same time.
Yeah, I can go next. I'd say it's a pretty similar for me. Almost all of my classes are in the music school. I'm taking like one physics class in some other like university requirements outside. But other than that, everything's in the music school. Just like a brief rundown, like music theory, oral skills. We have orchestra 3 times a week, coachings, lessons, and lots of practice. So and rehearsals. So that's pretty much my day every day. So yeah.
Thank you guys for sharing. The next question is, as a college student, how much time do you spend practicing versus studying in academics?
I can go first. So I definitely practiced less than I did in high school, which probably might not be the same response as, the other people on the panel. I think I know a lot of people in the dual degree program feel the exact same way. It's really difficult to juggle extracurriculars. There's a lot of pre-professional opportunities with your classes, which might be really difficult, more than you're used to in high school, also with practicing. Um, that being said, I think I've still seen a lot of progress in my playing throughout college, even though it might not be at the same pace as it was in high school. And so while I may not practice every day or as much as I'd like to, I still definitely have time, especially if you discipline yourself, say no to some social hangouts, in order to practice your instrument. Because, I chose to major in music because I love it so much. And that means like sacrificing some other things, like social life things sometimes to practice.
I say for me, I'm trying to increase my practice time. Especially at this point in the semester, the classes I am taking are busy and they pull my time away from practicing or it's like, or I'll skip classes and then I'll get behind and now I have to catch up. But I will say because the three things that I guess I was like studying, it's like clarinet, pure math, and then computer science. None of these things have like anything in common, and I'm saying this more as a warning. Um, so they all like take time away from each other, and it's not like studying one would help a whole lot with the other. And so being pulled apart in like three different directions for the past couple of years um has left me like dissatisfied with my like performance, I guess, in each one of those. And I remember freshman year, I wanted to do everything. And I think I was young enough. I'm saying that like I'm like 40 years old or something. But I had enough energy to where I could stress myself out constantly and do like everything. I'd be running to catch the bus, running to classes. I would be fine on like less than 6 hours of sleep for like a month. But now that I'm like old and like a senior, it's like I want to take my time. I don't have the energy to stretch myself so thin. And I realize that I do need to prioritize one thing or the other for what I care about most. And I think as of recently, like very recently, I do want to focus more on practicing. So I'm probably going to slack off in my classes for that. But it's a trade-off and a balance. You can't do everything. So pick something that you like, I guess.
Yeah, I will say, as far as my personal practice scheduling goes, I remember at the beginning of my college experience, I had a very difficult time balancing practicing and doing my academic work. So, like writing lesson plans, doing theory homework, music history homework, all of those things. But as I have gone through my college experience, have started to think of practicing as my homework for studio class and for my lessons. That's just my homework for that class. But when I'm doing my theory homework, I'm not thinking like, oh, I need to spend an hour on my theory homework. I'm thinking, okay, I need to do however long it takes to get this theory homework done. And I try and apply something similar to my practicing. I'll usually aim to practice every day for like 2 to 3 hours. I don't think it's worth overusing your chops by any means, but I'm not super strict with that whole timing thing of it. I'm more focused on like how much progress am I able to make? Am I getting past these plateaus? Am I growing every day? Focusing on that instead of the timing, at least for me personally, I feel like makes it a lot less toxic of a relationship between myself and practicing.
Yeah, I think my experience is a little bit different than the other people on the panel, just since I'm only a teleperformance major. So I'd say for me, most of my time, not that much of my time is spent towards academic stuff or as little as possible, so that I can have more time to practice and prepare for that stuff.
I do want to clarify what I said. I feel like I ended on a really grim note. I said like, I think I said like you can't do everything, so pick one. What I mean is you can do a bunch of different things like pretty good at like a satisfactory level, but I feel like it's very unrealistic to excel in multiple things that, especially they're if they're not very related. So if you want to like truly excel in something, whether it's like one interest or the other, then you have to make some sacrifices in the other things you are interested in. I think that's what I meant.
Thank you for clarifying. And for our audience, as we're reaching the end of the panel, make sure to put your questions in the chat for us when we get to the live Q&A. What music-related scholarships or funding opportunities exist, and how can students find them and apply?
I can go first. I know something that I didn't really realize when I was applying to school is that there's so many scholarships available to music students that I like more than you would expect. So I'd say like even if like some school is like has such a high sticker price, which was definitely it was very scary like looking at all these schools and being like, "Oh my gosh." Like definitely like reach out to the school and like do your research because a lot of these schools have a lot of scholarship money to give away. I know Rice in particular, most people are on scholarship for music. Yeah, for just for college related scholarships.
At the University of Michigan, there are a couple of different routes you can go as far as scholarships. Of course, there's need-based financial aid, which if you fill out your FAFSA, that information will get sent out to all of the universities. And even though your income is the same, regardless of which university you're sending that to, they will all give you a different number. So that's something to consider. A lot of schools will have merit-based scholarships. And at least for the University of Michigan, that wasn't something that I had to apply for. That was something that was automatically granted to me, just based on my application and my audition, for the university. But they also have the universities will sometimes have a register of different scholarship options that you can possibly take up. Some of those will be music specific, and some of them are even more niche than that. I know I had applied for a scholarship, and I was first alternate, which was a little sad. But it was like a musicians who were applying to the University of Michigan from the DMV area, and it was just like oddly specific, and you wouldn't think to look for that type of specific um uh, uh scholarship, but your university or your college or wherever you're applying should have something for you to fill out there. I would also look into your NAFME organizations or your state music organizations. So I received a scholarship through VBOTA, so the Virginia Band and Directors Association. Wherever you do your all-state or wherever you hold your competitions, if you dig through those websites, they'll usually have some type of a scholarship program that you can apply for, and most people don't usually know about them, so you've got a pretty good shot of earning a scholarship there.
Another organization is called bold.org. They have a lot of random like prompts on there, and money's not that great, like 1,000 or less, but if you like stack up on a lot of those applications, especially because the essays aren't long at all. Some of them are like write a paragraph. You can like really stack up the scholarship amounts, and a lot of them are music related and community related prompts. It's bold.org.
Thank you guys. I'm sure that's super helpful for everyone in the application process now. We're going to move on to our live Q&A. And the first question from the chat is, how important do you guys feel SAT scores are for music schools?
I can go for this one. I think it definitely depends on which school it is. I think a lot of the conservatories don't really care that much what your SAT, ACT scores are. I know schools like Rice, UMich, Vanderbilt, more universities, schools, they want your SAT scores to be on the higher side, maybe not quite as high as like what you would need to get in academically, but I think I definitely, if you're looking into like a university like that, I'd put a lot of effort into making sure that your SAT score is around the average because they do look at your academic qualifications. Yeah, because at least at Rice, like you could, if I woke up tomorrow and decided I want to go pre med, I'm done with music, I could do that. I could completely transfer out, but that's not the same at every place. That's unique to Rice.
I think at least at universities, it matters more. I feel like conservatories, as long as you're not like it's not an embarrassing test, like embarrassingly low score, then I think you're good. But for university, since you do have to take non-music classes, I think you want to show that you will be able to handle those. Um, if it helps, I remember for my class, like the seniors in the School of Music, Theater, and Dance, I remember during orientation, they said that I think the university average ACT score for UMich is like somewhere between a 31 and a 33, and the average for the senior class was a 28, um, which is like it's like kind of embarrassing in comparison. But then for the I think for this year or last year's freshman class, their average or median ACT score was like a 31. So I guess the newer generation is smarter than us. So I don't know.
I will also say, for some of the schools that you apply to, it might say in your Common App that SAT or ACT scores, submitting them is optional. That did start around COVID times just because of all of the canceled tests that were occurring and like the tests are occurring, but people still need to go to college, so we're slowly starting to wean that out. I will say, if you feel comfortable submitting the score that you have, it always helps, in my opinion, to submit it if you feel you have at least like an average score. Because at least then they have something to go off of. That's just my personal opinion, though. I had a 1270 on my SAT. It was enough to get me into the institution, and they kind of took my other qualifications from there and ran with it. So if you don't have a perfect score, not a big deal.
Thank you guys. The next question is for those of you that are doing dual degree or double major, how does the workload compare? And can you talk about the difference between minoring and double majoring in music?
I feel like the workload honestly depends on what your other major is. At least for me, a performance degree, it's kind of like a pick your own, a choose your own how intense it's going to be. Because I feel like at least here, the theory classes and all the required music classes aren't terribly hard compared to the other university classes. And with practicing, it's just kind of like do you practice a lot and like you kind of choose how much you practice. I guess and like how much you do. But then depending on what other major or other degree you add, depends like how hard you'll work. Like maybe if you do like I'm just gonna pick on the classics here. Like if you do like communications, that might be an easier workload than if you do like computer engineering or something like that. But it also depends on how involved you are in the other area, and also just semester to semester which classes you would take. But it is more work because you are doing like a whole separate degree. And so most of the time you will probably be taking as many classes as you can. And especially when it's midterm season or final season, you will be suffering. But that's normal. So
I will say it's very dependent on what your other degree is. Just because my two degrees that I'm doing are within the same school, it's just performance and education. My schedule pretty much looks like I'm getting a music education degree, and I'm choosing to just take a lot of chamber music on the side because that's the only requirement that's specifically for performance that isn't already included in the music education degree. So if you're thinking of going into either education or arts admin, or some other like potential thing to either minor in or add a second major in, those courses should overlap nicely. Really any of your like other music school option type degrees at your core, your basic theory classes, your music history classes, your lessons, like those should all carry over, which in my opinion is a huge deal as opposed to like doing clarinet performance and computer science, which have absolutely nothing in common. The only thing you will get with that is just a couple of gen ed courses that overlap.
One last question. For those of you who have taken trial lessons online, do you feel like it was worth paying for an online Zoom lesson, or do you feel like it's better to travel and take the lesson in person instead?
I can answer this. I did a lot of online trial lessons. I think they were extremely helpful. Of course, if you're able to travel in person, that is always better if you have the abilities to do that. But I think online was definitely a lot better than nothing. You're able to start getting a feel, start thinking about the different professors and like who you think would be best for you as well. You're on their radar. Um, you can get something like for me, I like took very lots of notes on those lessons and I worked on those things to make sure that they saw that I was really listening and paying attention to what they said in the trial lesson. So I tried to improve those for the audition. And also getting those different perspectives was just super helpful for me. So I definitely say I thought it was worth it. But of course, in person, if you're able, if it's a short drive or, yeah, always great.
I feel like for me, the trial lessons helped a lot, especially my trial lesson with my professor at UMich, because I think I felt the most comfortable around him. And also after I played, he told me, it was like, oh yeah, you don't need to worry about like getting in. So that took a lot of pressure off. And also I took a trial lesson with I think the clarinet professor at the Eastman School of Music. And because of that, in my pre-screenings, when it came to the live round for the audition, he was like, "Oh, I already know how you play. Just like play through some of this and just ask me questions about this school." So it can be kind of like a mini audition beforehand. Um,
If for some reason you're unable to like schedule or afford one of those private lessons, I will say the private lessons that I did were online, but they were also free. But I guess that isn't the norm depending on which instrument you're playing. I don't, maybe bassoonists are just a bit more chill with that. You can absolutely always just write them an email with your questions in it, even if it's not in a proper lesson format. Like if that's something you don't have access to in the moment, truly it is their job to answer your questions and to help you out. And this is also a chance for you to interview them in their program. So take advantage of asking questions in as many different formats as possible, even if it's not a lesson.
Yeah, also, I can add, I think it's always worth asking because, at least for me, like a lot of the professors ended up giving me that lesson for free because there are also these people, they're also looking to recruit, they're looking to expand their studios. So a lot of times the school or can help you out with that. But a lot of times not. A lot of professors won't do that, but it is a possibility.
Well, thank you guys so much. That concludes our panel for today. I really appreciate you sharing your experiences and advice, and I'm sure that our audience has learned a lot about the many different paths you can take as a musician. To our listeners, if anyone is interested in asking more questions, all of our panelists' emails are on the screen, so take a picture of that, and they're all happy to answer your questions. So thank you all for joining us, and good luck with those college applications. You got it, and you're going to do great.
Thank you guys. It was very helpful.